Alrighty, guys. So we are back on another episode of the Gearbusters podcast. Tonight on our episode, we have Makisa Upton and Stephen Harrell. Both are very active in the rally community, and we're just going to kind of have a nice little chat tonight. Talk about a couple different things, some of their highlights, some of their different things that we've noticed in the current rally scene right now, and some other stuff like that. But first, I would like to have both Makisa and Steve give a little introduction. So I guess duke it out to see who wants to go first.
Not it.
Oh, he said nose goes. All right. So Makisa, it is you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and, what got you into rally.
Sure. So I have been involved with Rally since 2011. That was the first event I ever attended. I'd never heard of it and was invited to go to one and was a little suspicious. Wanted to know, is that like religion, community event, rally, political? What are you getting me into? And immediately fell in love. It took all of about an hour. And since then, worked to build a car and had a team where I raced with Stephen, and we raced together for about 7 years. Built a car in a 2-car garage. Did everything but weld. I don't like to weld, and I'm not any good at it. And in addition to that, I've worked as an organizer as well. So I've been everything from tech inspection and spectator marshal to chief of controls and clerk of course. So 29 competition rallies, 5 podium finishes. I said 4, I think, when I talked to you earlier, but it is 5. And looking
nice.
forward to the next one. About to hit my 30th, I hope, this year. So.
Awesome. All
right. I went at it sort of a roundabout way. I first got into desert racing and pursued that for 3 or 4 years. And at some point, it occurred to me that living in Massachusetts and competing in desert racing don't really go along together. So I looked for something that's a similar format, but a lot closer, and that was rally. So 2010, I went to 5 or 6 rallies as a spectator, then a crew member, and got into it. And next year, 2011, I was in a car, and it's been a lot of rallies and a lot of drivers since then, and still at it.
Awesome. So, all right. So you guys talk about driving. We talk about co-driving. Do you guys both do seat time in both seats, or do you have a seat that you primarily focus on more than the other?
Currently, I'm a co-driver. That's what I've done the whole time. But I am definitely considering switching seats. That is a big shift for a co-driver, though. We like to be in charge and we like to know everything, and you lose that when you switch seats. But I'm open to moving over to the driver's side.
Very nice. What about you, Stephen?
When I was doing the desert racing, I did a desert race as a driver, but aside from that, I'm co-driver all the way. And I'm happy being right seat. The way I think about it is, as a co-driver, I get to work with, at times, one of the 10 fastest drivers in the country. I will never be one of the 10 fastest drivers in the country.
Okay. I mean, well, maybe if you ever decide to transfer to the other seat.
Oh no! Like I said, I drove a desert truck. I know my pace.
Okay, that's fair. I feel like desert racing and rally racing, I mean, while they're similar, I feel like desert racing has a different, I guess, the level of traction, the road conditions and things like that. I feel like that might be slightly more tricky. Thoughts on that?
Certainly in some aspects. I mean, obviously the endurance. When I drove, I did the first quarter of the race, which was 172 miles, and took 5 straight hours.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah. So you really you really need to get ready for that kind of endurance in desert racing.
That makes sense.
Obviously, it's a slower terrain at a lot of points. There's boulder fields that would kill a rally car in 20 feet that you'd have to just crawl over sometimes. But
yeah, I can see that.
But on the other hand, the challenge in rally is like seconds matter, tenths matter. I mean, in rally, I've had 3 races I've done where it's come down to less than a second for the margin of victory. In desert, half hour.
Yeah, I mean, well, and I have a friend who he's done the Baja
Mhm.
few times and different stuff like that, and another friend who's built trophy trucks and stuff like that in Arizona. And yeah, it just the times that you see, like here's first at like 35 minutes or whatever, and there's a 40-minute lead between him and the next guy, and you're just like, that's insane.
Yeah.
So
And with the classes, it's even wilder. So when I was first doing the desert racing stuff, I was doing stock pickup truck. So it was like a quote unquote stock Ford Ranger, which meant the suspension locations were the same spots and everything, but the shocks were 3-inch diameter. But that's still crazily stock versus the trophy trucks, which have 3 feet of suspension travel and literally cost $1 million. And
yeah.
we'd be like a third of the way through the course getting reports on who won in trophy truck.
Oh man, what a difference. So
Mm-hmm.
but well, yeah, so that's a very good perspective. I'm gonna hopefully see that's one thing with me with Drop a Gear because we focus on all aspects of motorsports. Obviously, rally is my big focus right now because I'm building 2 different rally cars now. As new developments have happened, thanks to some comments from Dirtfish and Subaru Motorsports and things like that. So, yeah, and well, actually, I think even the ARA's Facebook commented on it that we should do what we're about to do. So, should be a very interesting year for us next year. But yeah, rally's kind of my focus right now. But and that kind of brings me into some of the stuff that I talked about on the social channels and that we talked about offline beforehand with the different things that are happening here in America. Rally is finally, in my opinion, is finally starting to get a little bit bigger. I'm starting to see more of it. Maybe that's just the algorithms finally showing me things that I want to see. But I really like a lot of the different things that I see coming. And one of the biggest things is that we've seen some, WRC stuff coming over here, and we have some Rally 2 cars, different stuff like that. So what do you guys think about some of these other cars, coming over, and intermixing with the ARA lineup? I guess we'll start with Steve.
Man, I just finished talking. All right. um, I'm for it for sure. I think like Tennessee last year when we had Sean Johnson in the Rally 3 and crap, I'm forgetting the Irish guy's name.
Oh, that wasn't
McElhenney?
the, was
No.
that the one that had the off there at the Hellbender?
Uh, hit the jump bad, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, oh man, I remember that. I talked to them after that because
He,
I was there when that happened.
he's in WRC now, like Rally
Yeah,
1 for M Sport. And I'm just,
I I
oh,
can't remember
Josh
either.
McElhenney.
Yes.
Josh McElhenney.
Gosh.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think
Yep.
having him there, showing the pace potential of Rally 2s against the Subarus, I thought that was fantastic.
Yes. Totally.
So
Totally agree.
I think having these vehicles from Europe and that are familiar into the other series coming into the US and the drivers that are familiar in other series coming into the US is definitely good for the visibility of the sport. Um, it's unfortunate that our country's import regulations make that as difficult as it is.
Yeah, I would agree on that one. I think it would be really cool to see some more of the like the I-20s coming in and stuff like that. Especially like the first time I saw them in the US was back when Ken Block ran one, and I was
Right.
just like blown away at that car and the pace that it could do. So yeah, so I was really excited for that, and it's been definitely pretty cool to see that as well. So well, what do you think, Makisa?
I'm always for anything that pushes us to do more or do better. I think that's the exciting thing about it. It adds a new layer of competition. As an organizer, it's exciting. It draws in more spectators, more people to watch. The only caution I would have is to watch how we adjust the rules so that we don't rule out our regional competitors. And that's really where the bread and butter of Rally is, honestly, for who's talking about it, who's sharing about it, who's going out in the community and organizing these events. It's
Oh yeah,
the regional
100%.
competitors. So
Oh, absolutely.
that's huge. But I'm excited. I love the cars. Absolutely adore them. And I cannot wait to get to see some even more up close and in person. So tech inspection might have a new volunteer again.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, and that's one of my biggest things is just the visibility that it brings to the American side of Rally. But also because it does allow that bigger exposure. I like the fact that this year, like we have, Kubota stepping up and being a huge, huge asset to the sport. I've actually been saying that for a while, within my own circles of friends and stuff. Like, it'd be really nice to see more, name sponsors coming in, because Subaru has carried it, for so long. But I love the fact that now other companies are like, hey, that's a sport that we can get into, and I love the fact that they've, doctored up Connor's, car like a orange Kubota tractor. And he's, decided to just start calling it that, I'm taking the tractor on the stage today. So I think that's pretty cool. And it just really, it really helps to really drive more progress for the sport. And I'm excited to see a lot of the different stuff with that. I'm going to kind of jump around on my questions here because this kind of segues into it. So with the Rally 2s, the Rally 3s and stuff like that, what do you guys think of Travis running into a limited four-wheel drive class this year? I was thinking about it a little bit here, and to me, I see it as a means for, everyone who has been competing, who's been running in those classes, to kind of maybe stretch, right? Maybe they've kind of gotten stagnant. They've gotten to a point where they've got that pace, right, that they don't really want to push past. And to me, I see Travis coming into that, and maybe that actually being a thing to help, stretch drivers a little bit, stretch the co-drivers, get them to, push past a current wall and grow, both as a driver, co-driver, and stuff like that. So, well, what do you think on that one, Steve?
I think for a lot of the limited four drivers that are in like the self-built Subarus and stuff, it's going to be difficult for them to match the pace of a six-time champion in a car built by people who live and breathe professional level Subarus. But I don't. That's not me saying I don't think it's a bad thing he's moving into L4. I think it's great to see him moving into what's at least closer to the everyman of North America Rally. And I think this will also make things interesting with the Rally 3 cars in Limited 4, which were themselves beyond the means of most of the grassroots competitors. And seeing how Travis's car matches against the pace of those cars, which we know from the global stage what they can do, will make it a
Oh, yeah.
very interesting season.
I think that it's actually a very good point, because it's going to allow us to see kind of where the Rally 3 stuff falls into the mix. And it's, it's not going to be necessarily a lot hard. Well, I shouldn't say it's not going to be harder. It's definitely going to be challenging for the drivers to attempt to match that pace. But I think it'll be interesting as well, just because it allows us to see Travis in that light, because we all know Travis is, kind of big on his fans and the followers and stuff like that. So I think it'll be interesting to see just how he changes the competition a little bit. But
Yeah, and
what?
in fairness, I was saying this is probably going to be better than any of the grassroots Subarus out there, but like it'll be closer to the level of grassroots Subarus because I'm sure Makisa,
Yes,
you
yes,
remember
that's fair.
you remember the last time Vermont Sports Car built a limited class car for Dylan Van Way,
Yeah.
and he won the championship, sure, but he won it by a single point.
Yes.
So it is possible at least in theory, to battle for stage wins against Unlimited Vermont Sports Car.
Okay. No, that's a fair point. I guess in some way I was thinking the scare factor is the fact that people are going up against Travis, right?
Oh yeah.
But at
That's
the end of the day, the points are still in the mix here. So,
yeah.
but
Well,
I
go
think
ahead.
I think the big margin will be that it's Travis more than
correct.
the car.
That's fair. That's
Like
fair.
I think the car with I don't want to sound cruel again to the grassroots competitors, but competitors with their level of seat time in the Vermont Sports Car Limited car, I think would be beatable. I think Travis coming with the hours and hours and thousands of miles he has in rally, that's going to be the difference maker more than the car itself.
Oh, sure. And I think that's where I'm thinking like it's going to help stretch the drivers to maybe push themselves to something, uh, to something different. Like, okay, what can I do differently that, I know works, but can help shave off that little bit of time so that I can get to that, that level. But yeah, what's your take on it, Makisa?
Well, I think Steve called out a couple good things. It's going to push them. The cars aren't going to be the same, but I think if you look at Travis and the change when he moved over to working with Rhiannon and how he's finished differently, how he's competing at a different pace than he was before. I think that's exciting too because he's shown us already the value of what Steve and I do in the car. And he said it multiple times that a good co-driver, not that he didn't have a great co-driver before, loved his previous co-driver too, but the change in the co-driver and finding that teammate and that partnership that works so well together will also push you further. And I'm a huge proponent of doing everything you can do to learn more and grow more. And if that means spending time with Rhiannon, or I've had people that came and spent time who were new to the sport with me, which lucky them, they survived. So, but I think that's important that we help each other grow and change. And I know that Travis and Rhiannon have always had that mindset of how do we all as a sport get better and get stronger. And that's really to me what it will do for all of us is show us that, hey, it doesn't matter the car you're in. It matters the team you put together and the effort you put into it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And so that's that was one of the other things here is we talked about, you talked about forming a bond,
Mhm.
the team and stuff like that. I see, you guys have co-driven for multiple drivers and, things like that. Um, I'm sure sometimes that can be a little tricky, forming that bond, but as I've watched, other drivers and their co-driver, just that bond that forms, you can really see when they start to mesh and everything just starts clicking. They get their notes on pace with each other. They figure out the different ways of delivery so that the driver, knows ahead of time and things like that. And for me, that's a big thing because, well, in stage rally wise, I'm coming up on being a brand new competitor and things like that. So it's going to be different for me because I've never had a co-driver. I'm used to rallycross where it's just me and maybe my son in the car, hanging on for dear life while I, try to whip around as fast as I can, which the car that we're currently working on, just if that car that I was showing you guys before we started here, is my little Subaru Vivio K car.
Yeah.
So if you remember, um, Dirtfish and Subaru talked about how Colin McRae used this car in the African Safari Rally. So I have two of these cars that kind of fell into my possession on kind of some weird things, but anyway, I'm running with it, and the one was already being rallied in Japan before it came here. So it's gutted. It has KYB Super Rally struts on it. So it's it's marginally set up. And so I started rallycrossing it. I rallycrossed it last year, and when I'm running around the rallycross course at the same time as a full size car, it's I was like, okay, this is a lot of fun. And I made the comment and the joke about how we were going to do that and run that, and Subaru Motorsports replied with a meme and was like, do it. So here we are. I'm gonna build a Vivio rally car and hopefully we can run it in ARA and in 2026, and it'll be a lot of fun. But getting back off of my little tangent there, with that bond forming between the driver and the co-driver, it's going to be fun for me because I'm going to have to find a co-driver. I'm going to have to, learn that bond. But that's also something for me that I want to try and hopefully at some point have the opportunity to also sit in the other seat and learn the ins and outs with that. So with that forming of a bond, what do you guys think is the best way to form that bond with your driver, or if you're the if you're the driver, or if you're the co-driver? What's your tips and tricks for, forming that bond with your drivers?
I hit a tree. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
I don't think that's the bond we're looking for.
No, but actually it's interesting because that does actually play in. So you've seen, I've run with about 11 different drivers in the 29 rallies I've done, which is a lot. And Steve, I know you do the same thing. You kind of, where they call, you go. And that can be difficult. Unfortunately, fortunately, a lot of the ones I've run with are rookies. So I get to kind of shape and mold a little bit, which is good. But that also means, how do we connect? And I'll be honest and say, I have a very extensive interview process that we go through for me to get in a car with them. I have no desire to do anything. I do lots of crazy things. I ride dirt bikes, I ride motorcycles, I mountain bike. Like, we're out there doing the crazy, but we're going to do it as safely as possible. So that means I want to know you before we get in the car. As a female too, one of the things that I find is that I want to speak to their spouse, because sometimes the spouse is uncomfortable with that, because you spend a lot of time together. You are extremely close. It's intense. And so the great thing is, the spouses that I've worked with, especially lately, are phenomenal. I've had a couple tell me, we absolutely don't want your seat in the car. So, which is really nice, because a lot of times I train the girlfriend or the spouse to get in the car with them and work myself out of a job. But that's how it rolls. But really spending time, really being willing to have those in-depth conversations. And then I have a rule when I get in the car: what happens in the car stays in the car. So if you have a moment, if something doesn't go right, if the car breaks down, if the crew didn't prep it, or the driver didn't prep it, or the co-driver's off book, you say it, you own it, and then you leave it there. Because if you take it with you, it becomes this thing that just stays between you for the rest of the time you're together, and it really inhibits that ability to work together. So the comment about hitting a tree, Alan Bolito, who runs the Blue Subaru, I don't know if you've seen it out at Show Me. We hit a tree last November, and it was probably one of the biggest impacts. Well, that's not true. It was the biggest impact I've had to point. And the relationship that we had built, he was trying to figure out what had happened, and I was trying to get him out of the car. And Steve knows this: when you have an impact and you're on the road, you've got to get out of the car, because you're the next target, and you have a minute or less. Yeah. And we actually got to the point where I couldn't get him to listen and get out of the car. And I maybe said some things that weren't true to get his attention. And when we walked out of the car, he goes, "I didn't do that." I said, "You're right. You didn't do it, but you got out of the car." So it's being able to laugh. It's being able to have a good time, but it's also being able to call each other, out when, or in, as one of my colleagues likes to say, we call each other in to doing what we need to do. And nice. When you can build that and get to know each other and spend time together, you don't stay far apart and not look at video, or stay far apart and not have dinner together. You really invest in that relationship. It's just like any relationship that you build. And it's been pretty successful I've got some stuff, so it's been successful. It's not easy though. And there are drivers that after one event, we decide we don't want to run together, and that's absolutely fine. And they go on and have great things happen. And so do I. So you have to celebrate for each other too.
Oh yeah. That's awesome. No, that's a very good point. And I like your approach, getting the spouse involved and things like that. I had the opportunity to help Racing for Heroes with some content over the fall last year at their end of the year event that they do, which is charity laps down at Virginia International. And, we drove down there. My wife and I came down there. I was doing a lot of filming and stuff like that. Well, we have a 2021 Subaru Ascent, and I took it around Virginia International with her in the passenger seat. So, I have a little clip of it on our channel of, me walking up to her and being like, "Hey, so I'm going to take your car on the track." And she just goes, "Don't break it." So, but she knows me. She knows how I drive. She drives just like me, so it kind of works out.
That
But
helps.
but I did like that a lot though, because that's a big thing. I think for me as well, knowing that obviously we have either female drivers or we have female co-drivers, and sometimes they're working with someone who's married and things like that, and so it's always good that the spouses are kind of involved and understand what's actually going on here. Like this is the professional thing here. So
Yeah.
um
And my partner's a co-driver as well. Actually, we met racing, and he's involved in who I drive with as well. He has the opportunity, if he feels like the car is unsafe or the driver's unsafe, to say no. And I think if you are in a relationship like that, they should have a say. They should have a voice. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to come watch if you get them involved to begin with, which is even better.
oh yeah, absolutely. So well, that's very good. Stephen, what are your thoughts on the bond and all of that stuff?
Well, first off, I think I need to borrow Makisa's notes on what she asks drivers about before sitting with them, because that sounds like a good idea. I know I'm not that extensive in my pre-event research. My case, usually I look at their results. How do they usually finish events, and then I'll talk to their previous co-drivers and see what those co-drivers have to say, and get some info about the car, who built it. I want to take a look at some welds. I want to see what seats are in it, stuff like that. And then usually after that, and then a little bit of less extensive chat than she does. Like I said, I'll say, let's send it, see what happens. And
Yeah.
it's a lot like interacting with people in general. I've had some drivers where by the first stage of recce we're best friends. I've had some where end of the rally we just like didn't really talk to each other much the whole time, aside from the necessary stuff, and
You
just
just kind of
go
shake
our
hands
separate
and all
ways.
right,
Yeah,
I'll see you later.
Or just wave, just
yeah.
wave and walk away. Yeah.
Sometimes even if nothing went wrong, you don't match.
Yeah, sometimes I tell people this all the time. Sometimes you can know there's just going to be some conflict, some tension somewhere that just isn't going to work, and sometimes it doesn't have to be about even the event. It's just you feel that. So no, that
Yeah,
makes sense.
and not even necessarily conflict. Like I had a driver I worked with a few years back where he was just extremely introverted, and I'm also a bit of an introvert, so we just didn't talk. And like we get to the stage, and I tried to get some sense of how he felt about the stage, and it was like a statue next to me. I was like, "Were you happy with that? How you feeling, buddy?" And
Oh, you know.
we had decent times. We didn't have any incidents. We didn't have any conflicts. We just it was like being in separate rooms in between the stages or something. We just no
Yeah.
interactions.
Okay. Well, yeah. So I mean, and I can see that. I have that sometimes with, I mean, even some of the friends that I've made over the years. The first couple times you get together, those kind of things happen. But so yeah. So when you're working with new drivers, um, honestly, one of the biggest things, and this is kind of my own research at this point, but what are some common mistakes that drivers and co-drivers make, in the beginning? What's one of the biggest things that you've seen over the years, Makisa?
Being too sure that you know what's coming.
Ooh, that's a good one.
So, especially if you are a new driver running with a new co-driver, I never encourage people to run new and nude at the same time.
I
Put
don't I
somebody
don't even like
experienced.
that idea.
Yeah. Put someone experienced in the car, because it's very easy. And Steve, I don't know what you call it, but always called it red mist. To, as you're running, if someone passes you, which is going to happen when you're a rookie, unless you're starting dead last, when someone passes you, to want to follow and to want to take their line, or to chase them down, or to think, I don't need to listen to my co-driver. I think I've got this. And you don't, and new co-drivers don't either. And not being willing to say, hey, I'm off book, or hey, our mileage isn't lining up. Drive what you see for a little bit until I can figure out where we are for sure. That's a huge mistake. Owning your level of experience and your development level in rally is really critical to not having bad things happen to you, to the car, to spectator, to anybody, right?
No, that's a very good point. I like that. Well, what else do you see? I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Sorry. Yeah, no, you're good. I think other mistakes are not getting the right safety gear. One of the things that I have switched, and Steve, I would imagine you're in the same boat when you said you want to see welds, you want to see what seats they have. I don't run in cars without halo seats anymore. That put me in an ER one time, and it wasn't anybody's fault. I took the ride and I ended up with a concussion, and it's not worth it. I would rather see a crappy looking car with really great safety gear that has a good engine and can run than seeing some beautiful paint job or wrap or anything like that. When we built the car, the first thing that we did was start volunteering. So we knew what safety meant and what was important. I volunteered as tech inspection for a couple of times and actually worked with Mike Hurst to figure out what we needed to know. And it made a huge difference. I got laughed at and made fun of just a little bit in our first safety meeting that we went to, which was at 100 Acre Wood a million years ago. And we were sitting there in class, and I can't think of the gentleman's name right now. Steve, I think it was, different Steve. And he was asking questions, and I was the only one answering them. And eventually he looked at me and he goes, "You read the rules?" I said, "Didn't everybody?" And half the class, "I don't know what you're talking about." Know the rules, know what is competitive and what matters. In one instance, by knowing that, when I was very early on in my rally career, I want to say, I'm looking for a date here, I want to say 14 or 15, we were placed fourth and we should have been third. And because I knew the rules and how to go about it, we actually now I never got the trophy, 100 Acre Wood PRG, but we actually got moved up to third place because we knew the rules, and it makes a difference. Working as a organizer, I had a car back up at me in a control zone after I had told them to go. They started early. I moved them up to the start line, and they took off before the clock ran down, and they backed up, and that got them disqualified because they didn't know the rules, and they almost hit me. There's so many things, right? And I'm like, we don't play with safety. So safety, knowing the rules, and picking a good partner in the car are the most important pieces to me of getting it right. Writing your own notes is great. Going to Dirtfish, going to Oz. I'm not going to say anything bad about that. I went to Oz twice and I loved it. But the very foundational things are getting the safety right, getting the right people in the car, and then making sure you have a good time.
Oh, absolutely. I'm glad that you brought up the halo thing for the seats, because that was something. So last year I sat down with Billy Petro at Broken Motorsports, and we talked about different things, and we talked about, safety, and his big thing is don't skimp on your cage, get your cage done right. If you're just starting out, have it done by somebody who builds rally cages. Don't just have somebody who's like, yeah, I can weld. Yeah, that's great, but you don't know the ins and outs of a rally cage and the welds that you probably should be doing versus what you can do. So that was a big thing. And he talked about halos and stuff like that and halo seats. And that was one of the big things. As soon as I saw that, I was like, that makes sense. I like that. It keeps your head, from rocking around too much, because a Hans device can only handle so much before you start slopping around too.
Right.
And so I thought that was a pretty good point. Definitely something for me. My current car that we're building has just a regular Brid Lomax seat in it right now. It needs replaced anyway because it expires beginning of 26 anyway. So it's already needing to be replaced, but it's not a halo. So I definitely was going to, be replacing that. The co-driver seat is another weird type of seat from Japan, but it's also not a halo, so that'll get changed around. That was a big thing for me as well. But yeah, so what do you think? What do you think on all of that there, Steve?
I think she nailed pretty much all of it. In terms of new competitor mistakes, she touched on a little bit, but from the co-driver side, definitely getting off note on stage is it. If you're a new co-driver, it's going to happen, and you need to know it's going to happen and know not to panic when it happens. And one of the worst things you can then do is, when you do lose your spot, is take a guess at where you are on the page and start reading from that spot, because then you're giving the wrong notes in what sounds like a confident voice to your driver. So
Okay.
so don't guess where you are. Let them know you're off. Let them know if you're gonna try a note, say like maybe this, so that they don't go full tilt into it.
Okay.
And
Yeah. Help get them to kind of readjust their pace
right,
till you can, get back
yeah.
on
So
pace
they're
with them.
so they're driving what they're seeing while you're saying this, so that you can both see if it lines up. And another
Yeah, that
thing you
makes
can
sense.
do, and this works better with a more experienced driver, not a newer driver, but have them call what they're seeing as they drive it and look for that on the page. That's another good way to get back on. So I think the most common thing for new drivers in terms of mistakes is just, and you said something along these lines with your rallycross experience, it's you're not used to notes, so you don't listen to the notes. My biggest crash was Southern Ohio in 19, and it was a new driver who just, for one corner, didn't hear the note because he went back to drive what you can see mode, and we went into a right 3 at a right 5 pace and found a like 2-foot diameter tree.
Yeah, that doesn't sound fun.
It wasn't great. I mean, we bent the chassis all the way from the front bumper to the back. The transmission tunnel was a sort of a dog leg kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
The steering wheel, because the way the chassis bent, the steering wheel was touching the cage on his side. So there was a bit of movement of the shape of the vehicle.
Just a little. Okay. Well, yeah. So, and I like that. Making sure that the drivers are not, driving how they see, right?
Mhm.
I know that's going to be one of my biggest things. One of my biggest changes is getting used to hearing somebody telling me what I'm going to do after the turn I'm about to go through. And knowing that, because I've actually been watching a lot of the in-car stuff that I can, with all the different drivers that put the in-car stuff out there, but also have their audio. I love listening to that because I love listening to the co-driver calling out the stuff, but driving essentially like just watching the road and watching the driver do their thing and realize just how far ahead the driver is making, or is being told what's coming. They're coming into a right 3, but they're already being prepared for, the left, 4 Titans or something, along those lines. And so just being able to hear that and being able to try and essentially pre-train myself to, think ahead. I actually want to experiment this year, or get used to the idea, is if I can get to some rallycross events, I actually want to have my co-driver calling out notes on a 1-minute course. But it helps because I'm also it helps for me because I'm kind of one of those people where we drive through the rallycross stuff, and you do your parade lap and you drive through, and I'm already like, okay, this is right, and I'm gonna go to about here. That's about a 3. Okay. And I'm already like kind of putting my own, pace notes and stuff like that. And these rallycross courses that I'm on are so short that there's not even enough time to call out a distance between the next turn, so because it's basically a giant zigzag the whole time. But there's like this one straight spot where I might get up to like 40 mile an hour before I have to kind of brake. But I always have to test whether or not I have to brake because either I have a lot of traction or I don't. So it's a lot of fun. It's great. And that little K car I have pitched sideways more times than I thought possible, even on dirt. So I'm excited to see how that goes once we actually can stage rally it, because it's going to be drastically slower once there's a cage involved.
Add a
But
little weight.
yeah, just a little bit. I mean, the car weighs 1,200 pounds right now with nothing in it. So throw in a cage in there, we're going to be heavier just on principle. And I think I'll be lucky if I get one or two races out of that motor before that motor goes pop, because they don't make that much power and it's already been blown up once. So
Oh, the good old days when I owned a car. I think that's a good thing though that you're talking about with listening to someone call the notes. And as co-drivers, and Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, I have to be careful because as my drivers get faster, I want to call the notes further and further ahead. And so as a co-driver, you have to train yourself to stay with them and not, because the human mind can only process so much. You've got what's coming in through your hands and the wheel, you've got what's coming in through your feet and what your feet are doing to guide the car, and what's coming next. And I'm looking at my notes, I'm looking at the mileage, I'm looking up ahead to make sure there's not a car off, checking that, is there a press to pass? Is there a car somewhere else that we need to know? And it really is about training your brain to process that. I had a driver one time that would repeat every note back to me. I actually told him to shut up in the middle of a stage. And it wasn't his fault. It just was making me confused about where I was. But I appreciated the,
the feedback
where you are. Yeah. And so we worked that out. But I think that's one of the key things is learning what you can process. And as you go into it, thinking about what does that look like for you with that relationship with the co-driver. And I will straight up own, I love to road trip. We road trip all the time. And we will call, and we're just two co-drivers out there doing it, but we will call notes on the road trip. Hey, this is a left 6 Titans into a 800 straight. Hit it, or give it the
Nice.
beans, and we have a good time with it. But that's a great way just to build that skill of understanding. Of course, it changes in every vehicle you get in. So depending on whether we're road tripping in our Cayenne or our Escape, it's going to change a little
Right.
bit. Also, how fast you can go.
That's fair.
But that's important. That's important. And I think that's a really great, I would say to anyone, and rallycross and autocross don't translate one to one. It's not apples to apples.
Correct.
It's very much Fuji apples to Granny Smiths kind of transition where you've got.
Ooh, which one is which? Because I don't like Granny Smiths.
Yeah, the Granny Smiths are the super sour that you make pies with.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's not my favorite. I don't know that either one is bad though. Yeah, we're actually hoping to get an autocross car in the next year and put me in that driver's seat to let me start. But
autocross is a lot of fun. It's a different mindset on tarmac, chasing cones and trying not to slide out into the wilderness.
Yeah. And depending on what you get, front wheel, rear wheel, all wheel, it's a whole different experience. I did my first 2 events last year in a rear wheel drive, and the giggles that want to bubble up and come out when you're in the middle of calling notes is probably not the best thing, but feeling that tail end slide out and just enjoying that ride for a minute. And my partner races in a Porsche 944, and he's always told me that. Oh yeah. The black one, for anyone listening who knows the 2 that are in the US rally scene. And he was always telling me, you want to get in a rear wheel drive car and feel that. And boy, I got into a BMW E30 and yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I do some unorthodox drifting in my Suburban sometimes, just because why not? It's a giant. I had kids like it sometimes too. Going to the parking lot, Dad.
Yep.
Okay.
We drifted an F-250 on recce at 100 Acre Wood on accident one year down a hill.
No, it was on purpose. It was totally on purpose.
Well, okay,
it's never
yeah.
an accident.
It did take we had to stop for a minute and decide if we were okay. Because those 250s aren't really made for that.
No, they're not. They are not.
But I am finding that I very much enjoy just kind of letting the rear end do what it needs to do. So.
Very cool. Very cool. So we've talked about a bunch of different things here. We're talking about being in the co-driver's seat and, the ins and outs and all of that stuff. Obviously sometimes things happen on stage. I mean, you brought this up. Yeah. Sometimes you guys might have an argument. Things happen, it's on the stage. It's in the car. What, like you said, what happens on stage stays on stage. That saying I think applies to so many different things. you know, for me, with the military background and some stuff like that, it's always been, hey, what happens in the desert stays in the desert, and,
Right.
all of that stuff. But so we talked about a bunch of different things here. What was one of the biggest surprises that you guys have ever had in a rally car? Steve, why don't you start us off?
We went into a lake.
I remember that. I remember that. Oh,
Yep. That-
so
She knew it was
Car-
coming.
yeah,
I
yeah,
did. I was
just
waiting. I was
elaborate.
waiting.
Let's just elaborate on this one a little bit more for those that didn't see that happen. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about their trip into the lake?
Yeah, so it was Ojibwe rally, and there's this stage where um the road just like weaves its way between these two lakes, like literally
It's like
road
a land
edge.
bridge.
It is like road edge is lake on both sides, and so we're going through that, and it had rained since recce, so this puddle that was this size on recce was now this size, and between that and some brake issues that we'd actually retired from the first day from, and apparently weren't as fixed as we thought, we hit the puddle, went straight, and went for a swim.
Yeah, I remember that because that was there was some various highlights, and there was other. Well, actually, one of Ken came through, and there he is going through, and it's like, hey, there's a car in the lake. What the heck is that all about?
Yeah, actually, little side story on that. Ken always had that like limited edition 150 run poster he do at the end of each rally season. Um,
Mhm.
the poster that was supposed to come out the year that he died was him going past our car, and it turns out that someone at Hoonigan had said to Ken, you should sign a couple of these and send it to the driver and co-driver of that car. And so like a couple months after he passed, my driver Mark Williams and we got those posters. We didn't know they were coming, but they showed up with a note saying, how it went down, why we were getting them, how jazzed Ken was about the idea of signing these posters and sending them to us. So
That's
that's
awesome.
that's over my fireplace now, framed.
Yeah. Wow, that is that is awesome. I could go on a tangent about what I love about Ken's involvement in the sport, and I mean, anybody who watches the channel knows that he's honestly the number one reason I've been doing all of this. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff too that I really like to see within the rally community as well. Just the amount of, I mean, I guess you could just call it, the love for, everybody involved. And even if they have a bad experience in a way, we essentially celebrate the fact that you still can come back and do it again.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a big thing for me. And I think that was, that's a neat little, I guess you could call that a little Easter egg for some people, because the rest of us don't ever, didn't hear about that, and stuff like that. So I think that's actually pretty cool. Um, what about you, Makisa? What's your biggest surprise in a rally car?
There are so many.
Okay,
um,
well, pick one, maybe
but yeah,
two.
I think I think for me, it really is what you were touching on there is the way the community really comes together and the way everyone's out to support everyone. So the first event that we went to, we had spent so I've been in HR for over 20 years. Don't hold it against me. I know everybody loves their HR person. I'm a very
I
unique
like
HR
my
person.
HR people.
Oh, good. Okay, good. My team likes me a lot too. They also like the fact that when I work from home, they can see all my stuff. But it was unique to me when I got into the sport and had been working 40, 50 hours a week, and then every night going in and building this crazy Ford Focus. and was exhausted when I got there. We went out, we recce'd, and we came back to tech inspection and found out that the car had not passed tech inspection. And the primary problem was the seats. Well, actually, just the driver's seat. And I can remember being completely deflated and hopeless and just, I was so tired. I think all I'd had to eat that day was a thing of cheese cubes and an apple, and then 2 of those massive Monster energy drinks with the screw on lid. So I was not in a good spot. And I remember my driver and I going out to dinner, and we were sitting at this restaurant in Salem, Missouri. And it was very clear that we'd been very upset. I was crying. And we're trying to eat dinner, and this guy next to us was like, "Hey, what's going on? I saw y'all at the rally. And what's happening?" And we explained, and it was the crew chief for Subaru, for Vermont sports car. And he said, "Well, you need a seat? Let me see what I can do." He was not able to find us a seat that we could borrow, but he found a way for me to drive 4 hours the wrong direction, 4 hours back the next day while I worked on notes with my ex-mother-in-law driving. And we picked up and purchased a rally seat in race day 2. That to me, and so you asked a little bit about how we got involved in rally. When I was volunteering, Ken Block hit me with a rock because I was keeping a little kid back. And I bled like crazy. And I thought, this is so awesome. I want to do this. So when I decided I wanted to co-drive, ACP had said, "Hey, let me know if I can help in any way." And he put me in touch with Mark Williams, who wrote the guide to co-driving in North America, and helped me learn to like, it is a crew chief who doesn't know us from Adam. This is our first year, and is there willing to help. It is ACP being willing to put me in touch with someone like Mark Williams to help me. It is Ken Block signing my badge from working that year and saying, "So great to meet you. Is your hand okay?" Like, "Yeah, I'm good. I'm fine. I'm great." It's one of those things that you don't see everywhere. And it became a huge community. And I've had several opportunities, several health issues in my life, including a surgery that took out a third of a lung in between one rally and the next.
Ooh.
I had a 3-month break. And I was back in 3 months, braced, wrapped, on a lot of pain meds, probably not my smartest. But
I
the
mean,
rally community,
Travis raced with a broken spine.
right. So, I mean, I can't be that crazy. So it's one of those things where the rally community is why I made it through that. It was unfortunately a cancer scare. I'm good. We're good. But how do you find community that will do that for you?
Oh, yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. And I'm not going to go off on a tangent on this, but that's one of the biggest things that I'm trying to kind of usher in with how I run Drop-A-Gear is I'm all about the community. I want everything that I do with Drop-A-Gear to help benefit the community as a whole, whether it's rally, whether it's drifting, whether it's, dirt racing, anything that I can get involved with that we can use, either what we're able to do with content or, go support or even, help teams. If we can grow the channel, big enough to where we have that kind of budget, I would love to be able to be just up there. I'd love to be up there with, 43 Institute handing out checks to drivers for, various things. Cause as a guy getting into the sport myself, I'm looking at this going, it's expensive, but I want to do it. And I want to make sure that other people who are into this sport want and have the ability to do so. So that's kind of why, my channel structured the way it is and different things like that. So, hopefully it takes off and, we start getting some more support there and moving forward with that, because I really want to be able to give back to the community, in all of those little ways too. And I've seen that, you talked about, people, hey, guys with Vermont sports car, I can't get you something, but hey, I know where you can go get one. And helping, facilitate stuff like that is, to me, is really cool. And you've seen that across the board on many different occasions. I know that last year at Overmountain, when I was down there, the guys at Vilco ran into some issues and some things like that. And they had guys that, ran down to the parts store while these guys were on stage. They're like, yeah, this is broken or whatever. And guys are running to go get them stuff. And, other people are helping out. So I always think that's a really cool thing. And I see that same level of community in the rallycross side of things. Somebody has a D-bead and guys are rushing out there with a cheetah tank to beat it back up, once they get them back into the grid. just different stuff like that. We've had guy blew a tire, and the guy's like, I have another tire over here. You can run this and put that tire on, so he could finish the day out. So it's stuff like that I think is really cool.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I love giving back to the community. And as organizers, that's one of the things that we do as well. When the race is over and everybody else goes home, we're out cleaning up the woods. We're out making sure the community is cared for. We're out doing it. And a lot of the drivers that also organize do the same thing. But anybody who wants to get involved, that's such a huge way to give back to your local community and to invest in the people around. And I know, Steve, I've seen you around kids too when they come looking at the car and wanting to see what's going on. There's nothing better than putting a kid in the car, or even a grown up. I put a guy in the car who's like, "Oh, I can't get in there. I've had back surgery and knee surgery." I'm like, "Oh, me too. Let me help you. I can get in. You can get in." And I think that gives people a whole different connection to it. And then when we can give back and leave their community better than we found it, it's worth everything. It really, really is.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. What are your thoughts on everything there, Steve?
I really don't know what to say that hasn't been said already. Honestly, I feel like what's unique about rally is, and I suppose rallycross too, but it's less competitor versus competitor and more competitors versus the event.
Mm-hmm.
And so the biggest win is getting as many people to the finish, and then it's the order of how they got there. So like Snowdrift 2016, I was co-driving for Troy Miller, and we were running second overall nationally. And this was one of the events that one of the years Subaru didn't do Snowdrift, so we were in contention for an overall national win. And there was this super short transit between two of the stages where it was like 10-minute turnaround time. And we didn't even know it yet, but we had a flat. And we're coming up to the stage start, and the driver ahead of us, who's running first, sees us, sees the flat, gets his jack out of his car, and like as we're pulling to a stop, he does this like NASCAR pit stop, just shoving the jack under the car.
That's
I love
awesome.
it.
So like he had the old tire off before we were even out of the car, and so because of that, we weren't late going into the stage.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, those are, and again, like those are the things that I love hearing all of the different things, and I love seeing some of that stuff too. I mean, I watched at Overmountain. We were there on Hellbender, and I think it was McCormick was the driver there. He hit that jump, and it bounced the rear in. It's just the rear went this way and the front was already going somewhere else, and it didn't end well. But the guys, they hit the tree, they got out, they're standing there, and we were talking to them, and it was a father-son team, and at one point, the dad was standing there and we were talking. He's like, I'm just looking at it. He goes, it's gonna be a very expensive week. And it's just like, but they're already like laughing it off and just kind of like, hey, whatever. But seeing the level of, even the spectators wanting to, help the drivers, and like, after the event was done and they're trying to move it out, I think the marshals had to really corral the crowd from helping more than they did for other things. But I love seeing that kind of stuff. And so that's one of my biggest things about it is I love the way that the community comes together, especially when guys run into issues, they need a part, they need a fix, whatever it is, right? Like you said earlier, it's not necessarily the people versus the people, but it's everybody versus the event. And I think that's actually a really good way of putting it. There's so many different rallies. There's, you have the national circuit, you have your regional circuits. And there's even some other various offshoot rally events that aren't, within the ARA, gamut of things. Of all of those things that you guys have done, what would you say is your favorite rally?
I
You
have
need.
been thinking about this question for a while. How about you, Steve?
I mean, I know my answer. It's no hesitation for me.
Go for it.
It's Raleigh, Colorado. Raleigh,
Oh,
Colorado, out in
Okay.
Rangeley. I've done every national on the ARA calendar. I've done most of the regionals. I've done a handful of NASA events. It's Raleigh, Colorado.
Okay. Why?
yeah. I want to know
Mm-hmm.
more because I haven't done that one
I
yet.
need the down and dirty right now
Yeah.
because I've only started hearing more about Raleigh, Colorado in the recent years while I've been looking at different events. Because being on the East Coast, hopefully one day I'll get to, hit the national circuit. But that one sounds very interesting now.
Mhm.
It's so. First off, most ARA events are speed events. Their average speed well over 60 miles an hour. Raleigh, Colorado is the opposite of that, similar to Raleigh, Tennessee. Like Raleigh, Tennessee, the Subarus on some stages aren't breaking 60 for an average, and it's the same for Raleigh, Colorado. It's twisty, it's technical, it's slow, it's super rough. Um, there's spots where you really got to make sure your note is right because if you come over this corner 10 miles an hour too fast, you're off a cliff.
Whew.
There's massive elevation changes. There's some stages where it climbs 800,000 feet. Um, it's like one of the least forgiving and most rewarding rallies. There's
Okay.
some slow events where like it's a slow event, it's a slow stage, and it feels like that. Like there's no flow. Raleigh, Colorado, it's slow, but it still has this fantastic flow where like you get it right through a stage, you feel like Superman.
Nice.
And
I
so
like.
I love that, and just like the vibe of the stages. I've been there with 3 different drivers, and one of them, when he went for his first time, we were halfway through Recce, and he was like, he looked at the stages we'd done. He was like, "This is the closest I'm going to get to being on a WRC stage," because like that's how they feel.
Okay.
If you watch like Rally Mexico or Rally Greece, what you imagine those feel like is what Rally Colorado feels like.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So it's funny you talk about some of those because like I can't remember which one it is, but one of them like they actually like come into the city and they're
Mm-hmm.
running like through the city, and like the video is of them literally putting a car this big through an opening this big.
Yeah,
And you're just like, that car shouldn't fit through there, but he just went through there and he didn't do it at like 5. He did it at like 15.
yeah.
And I'm like, no,
It's
that's
it's
just insane.
Rally Colorado is definitely not like that stage.
Well, yeah, but obviously the technicality is more what I'm focusing on there.
Gotcha. Yeah. The big challenge for Rally Colorado is it's a super remote area. Like the reason it's not a national yet is because half the teams would have to stay in Jensen, Utah, which is like 45 minutes away,
Oh, wow.
and
We don't like that.
and it's a challenge getting volunteers as well because like the 2 nearest major cities, which is Denver in the one direction and Salt Lake in the other, they're both 4 or 5 hours away. So that's what's kept it from being a national so far. But it's
That makes sense.
stage wise, nothing touches it in my book.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm definitely going to have to figure out a way to get on one of those events at some point because it sounds very interesting to me. Mainly because the Vivio is not a fast car, so it'll be very nice to have a car stage that the car probably will be pushing itself, but not off the rev limiter at 80.
Well, with how narrow the Vivio is, you'll have a couple more feet of margin of error on the corners.
That is true. That
Good
is
point.
true. The car itself is 55 inches wide from
Mm-hmm.
mirror tip to mirror tip. It's literally on a 77-inch wide deck trailer right now.
Did two adults actually fit in it?
Your shoulders are usually touching.
Oh, okay. Okay. Just checking.
Yeah, so it's a very very small car. Obviously it's a K car, so it's definitely tiny, but it'll be a lot of fun.
You're gonna be touching halos when you get the seats in there.
Probably, actually, that's one of the
Then the
biggest
doorbell.
challenge. Honestly, the biggest challenge I think is going to be trying to figure out how to fit the seats and the cage inside of this car because of the size of the cage requirements and stuff like that. But I'm willing to give it a go because I have a pretty audacious idea with this car. I know that this motor will not last even probably. I'll be lucky, to be honest, if we get through an event with the way that this motor is. I did have to sloppily put it together recently because it burned a valve, and I had to steal a valve from my other K car and just kind of we're just gonna lap this one together and hopefully it'll run, which it does. But when you only make 65 horsepower, nominal clearances. So, but we have a pretty big goal to run that motor. It's all-wheel drive, which may be the biggest challenge, making it all-wheel drive after I put a Hayabusa motor in it. And also figuring out what class that puts me in. Definitely going to end up running an open 4-wheel drive at that point, which will be very interesting, being that the car is this big. So
Actually, if it's all-wheel drive, I think your biggest challenge is going to be making weight.
That may be true. Yeah, because right now it's 25. Off the top of my head, I don't remember what weight minimum is, but I know that this car only weighs 1,200 pounds right now. However, putting in a cage is easily going to add, 500-600 pounds of weight.
That'll
So
get
that
you
should,
roughly 1,000 short.
yeah, roughly. So it'll definitely be interesting, but that's why we'll have to put the Hayabusa motor in, because if we have to add weight to the car in order to make weight, then we need that higher horsepower engine in the first place. But keeping it all-wheel drive will be the tricky part because it's a motorcycle motor, and if it's in the front of the car and the diff is in the back, I got to figure out how to connect it all up. But I got a couple ideas in mind, so that's a whole nother project and whatnot. So, but anyway, Makisa, what is your favorite rally?
So I hope 100 Acre Wood doesn't get mad at me, because that is my home rally. And I love it. I absolutely adore it. It is one of my very favorites. But I've run Olympus a couple of times, and kind of the same thing. Wildcat. Oh my gosh, you are literally on the edge of a hill. Well, no, excuse me. You're on the edge of a mountain, and you sneeze, you're going off. And when I went out the first time and did it, they had just clear cut the mountain. I was like, could you not have waited a week? Could you not have left like some rescue trees or something? My luck, I'd have missed them all anyway. But I really like that. And the best experience I had, and so we talked about the different drivers, and Steve, I know you've done this too, where you fly out to a place and the first time you meet them in person is getting picked up at the airport and getting in a car with a stranger and driving, 2 hours to wherever you're staying. And that was a blast. I ran it with Jordan O'Connell in the donut car, or the donut mobile, I think he calls it. It's a car painted with Homer Simpson looking donuts. It's fabulous.
Nice. Love it.
And the kids, oh my gosh, the kids just loved it. I had kids, I had dogs. There's a picture of me sitting on the ground with 4 kids around me and a dog in my lap. So it wasn't just the roads, it was the community that you're in, but some of the roads out there where, again, if you sneeze, you're in a ditch or you're off the side of a cliff. That's the part of it that I really, really love. And 100 Acre has some good spots like that, but I've run it so many times that I think for me, Olympus just gave me that little boost of, oh dear God, need a minute, but it's a lot of fun. And if you haven't been out there, oh, it's a gorgeous rally, absolutely beautiful. But like Steve, I've raced a lot of them. I haven't done. What have I not done? I think only Oregon. I think Oregon Trail is the only one I haven't done on the national circuit. So if anybody needs the one for Oregon while I'm on here, just shameless plug.
There you go.
I happen to be available. But no, I think that's a really there's just a lot to that one and a lot of different surfaces that you're going to run onto. And the sand can be tricky from times to time that shows up there as well.
Nice. Nice. Very good. Very good.
I think I'll add, Makisa and I both chose more technical rallies versus like high speed rallies. And I think that's shows because, particularly as co-drivers, I think we like more technical events because you get along straight, and our side of the seat, we're just like,
are we there yet?
Tonight?
Are we at the next turn yet?
We're not doing anything. So I think, when you ask co-drivers, we'll always choose something more technical because that's what challenges us as co-drivers.
I like that. I like that though. But that makes sense though, because like you said, if you don't have anything to call out, okay, we got 1,000 straight.
Or even worse than that, right 3, left 3. Right 3,
yeah, it's just, you're not really doing anything. You're just kind of like
waltzing here.
You'd be like, you should just be like, when you have something like that, you should just be like, seesaw.
Yes. You just got a bunch of S curves coming up. Just, you don't need me for this.
You don't need me for this. Just drive straight. Just keep it between the trees.
Yep. Straighten those S's out and you're good.
Yeah. So
that's a good point, Steve. I hadn't thought about it like that, but that's a really great point. I do like the ones that make me work hard, and that by the time I'm done, my voice is gone and I've had the best time of my life.
Yeah. And also those events with, the long stuff between calls is actually, for me at least, a different kind of challenge in that I have to make sure I don't get too distracted. Because one of the things
you don't want to get off from it.
Yeah, one of the things I love about being in the car is it feels like the rest of the world disappears because all your focus has to be in that exact moment. So anything you've got going on outside the car doesn't exist. Anything that happened 10 seconds ago doesn't exist. It's pure focus on what you're doing, what's happening, unless you have a long straight. And then that just starts crawling back in. And then you're like, oh,
the world
that's
starts to appear.
Yeah, you get to the end of the straight. It's like, oh, right, I was doing something.
I was writing a verse. Sorry.
It's like playing old video games when the render distance was so far out, and all of a sudden stuff's rendering in. You're like, oh wait, I gotta start driving again.
Yeah, I shouldn't say this on a podcast, but I've also had that issue at times with slower, newer drivers, where because of their pace, I would get distracted.
I can't say he's wrong at all.
I honestly though, I mean, with the way you guys explain some of the stuff, from the co-driver and me being a driver perspective more, I can see that because I mean, I know even just driving, normally sometimes if my commute is not something, I'm in the driver's seat like a zombie, and you can't do that obviously, when you're focused. But I think if I'm flying through the woods at 70 mile an hour, I'm going to be a little bit more focused than I am just driving to work going.
Although I think, Steve, too, correct me if I'm wrong, the long transits, the hour and a half long transits get me too. Especially if I'm like, all right, we're on this highway now and you're on it till we're back. Just enjoy.
The long transits where there's like 2 turns.
Yes.
In an hour.
Yeah,
it
that really can be tough. It can be, yeah. And it's tough on drivers too. Drivers get the same, are we there yet? And especially at the end of the rally when that's your transit back and everything aches because you've just bounced over 64 baby heads at LSPR on that mountain stage, or you've done the waste management jump and waste management stage, and you're just like, I went out of the car and I'm stuck in it for an hour on a straight road. Somebody save me. So again, as an organizer, I get it. Those have to happen. I'm not upset about it, but those are the ones where I struggle.
That's fair. So with everything that we've talked about, if there was anything that you could do differently, just pick one thing that you might do differently.
I wish I'd found it sooner.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. I was 24, 25 when I made the switch from desert to rally. And if I'd gone straight to rally when I went to desert, I think I would have enjoyed those 4 years a lot more, having a lot more time in cars instead of time under a truck. Thinking this will be the year.
Yeah, I wish I would have started a little sooner. Getting started at 40 is not going to be fun.
You can do it. I
And
think the same, Steve. I was 32 when I found Rally, and that's when I started volunteering. And it absolutely, there is nothing I have done, and I've done a lot of things. There's nothing I've done in my life that I think I like the way I like Rally, and that I
mhm,
want to be good at the way I want to be good at Rally. I hope my boss doesn't watch this. Um, oops. But I think that passion and that drive and finding that at 30, I missed a lot of it. I
mhm,
did. And I love it. And I'm so thrilled to be a part of it. I wouldn't change anything about racing or my life since I started.
That's fair.
Yeah. But I think if I could tell a parent something, and I tell all kinds of parents out there, get them involved, give them the chance to try something new. There are so many, not to make this a guy girl thing, but there are so many little girls in these rural towns that I talk to that are like, "What? I can be a race car driver?" And I'm sure the little boys are the same, but they don't say that to me. The girls do. Or I can, I can do this. I'm like, "Yeah, I learned to build a car. I helped with an engine swap. I've done transmission work. I've done brakes. I do all that." And the chance to give that to someone else,
Oh,
just
yes.
it's just incredible, and I wish I had found that early enough to have a larger impact than I have today. So,
Very good. Very good. Well,
just
yeah.
a tangent off that quick if I can. I just want to say big ups to the women in rally. There's
Oh, 100%.
there's compared to other motors, we're not where we should be yet because it's not 50-50. But
mm-mm,
compared to other forms of motorsports, there's so many of them,
mm-mm.
and they're so incredible. They're kicking ass. A year or two back at Oregon Trail, they were on almost every class podium, both national and regional. And
That's awesome.
I just want to say mad respect. I know pretty much everything I as a man do that I don't even think about. It's so much harder for women, and so mad respect.
Well,
Oh,
and
I love seeing y'all out there.
I'm
I
the
love
same
being,
way.
yeah. And I'll tell you a funny story. So when I started the 100 acre what I ran, there were the first couple of years there were only 5 other women that I saw out there racing, and it was interesting because you talk about all the things we can do, and so we're going to make some bathroom humor here, and if you need to edit that out, that's fine.
Nope.
But
Nope. I don't even edit curse words out.
oh, I love it. Oh, perfect. Well, I should have told a whole different story earlier then.
Well,
Um,
shit.
damn it. But I remember I was sitting in the car and I was looking at my notes, prepping for the stage, and the car in front of me, and I hope this guy is still in rally and I hope he doesn't remember this was me. But he gets out to use the restroom and doesn't even walk away from the car, and he's out there on display. And so I just
Hmm.
kind of reached over and beeped the horn at him, like, "Hey, just in case you forgot, there's a female here. And by the way, I have cameras running because we're about to roll into the stage, but you do
Ah.
you." So, but I think that's one of the things that I appreciate about Rally is that they have really worked to ensure that we have the ability to do things like use the restroom so that we can be a part of it. And Rally has really welcomed us and given us that opportunity. And when you make good as a female in Rally, nobody says, "Oh, it's just because you're this," or, "Oh, it's a drawback." It's we're welcomed and we're appreciated and we're valued, and it just adds to the sport. I have never for 1 minute regretted getting into it. I'm just very glad we now have things like porta potties at the start and finishes.
I was about to say one of the biggest changes in rally since I started that no one really thinks about, but because of women, is every stage has porta potties. Because my first couple of years, there weren't any porta potties anywhere.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I remember hiking out into the woods at one stage, and luckily we were early. Our transit was longer than it needed to be, and so we had plenty of time, and I hiked so far out I couldn't see the road anymore because I had to completely take my fire suit off to go to the bathroom.
Right.
And you just can't. Yeah.
Yep.
So I also came back covered in ticks, so that was great.
Fun.
Yeah, and
so I don't have to
the
do that.
rallies, the rallies where there's no tree cover, like Oregon and Colorado and stuff, probably just have to hold it, don't you?
You do. You get really good at that.
or snowdrift when it's like 12 degrees outside.
I forgot. I have not done snowdrift yet either, and I think it's because I'm just petrified of being that cold.
We were out there this year, and funny story about that. Both me and my son got 2.5 hours into the trip from Pennsylvania, and we looked at each other and went, "Did you bring your boots?" No.
No.
Shit. I spent the whole weekend out there in the snow in sneakers. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm lucky I have feet.
You're very lucky.
Yeah, so we stopped at Walmart and bought like the feet warmers. Like I had like one on the bottom, one on the top, on the sides. Like, yeah, they were jammed. It was bad. And to top it off, we kind of murdered a deer on the way home on the very first night. It was great. So drove to Michigan, put a big hole in my bumper. That was a fun conversation with my insurance. They're like, "So what happened?" And I was like, "Well, I hit a deer at 11 o'clock at night." And they're like, "Okay, what kind of road was it?" I was like, "I don't know. It was a long road in Michigan." And they're like, "What were you doing in Michigan?" And I was like, "I was at a rally." And he's like, "A rally? What was the rally for?" I was like, "Guys in cars driving through the woods really fast." He didn't. It's the same thing like you talked about earlier, where it's like, what kind of a rally? What is this talking about? And people don't realize that. So, but yeah, so that was a whole slew of things. It was quite an event. But
I'm sure the competitors appreciated you taking out the deer though for them.
Yeah, but I took it out on a transit road, so I mean, it wasn't.
He was headed for somebody. He
was
not a target.
Listen, that deer was on a mission that night, and unfortunately, so was my Suburban.
I love it.
But yeah, so it was good times.
By the way, if y'all hate cold, don't do Pierce Neige in Quebec.
See, that's on my list of things to try too, though. But yeah,
I mean, I don't like cold, but I mean, I've been to Alaska, so I'll live.
Pierce Neige is great stages, but like the first time I went there, the high for the weekend was -9 Fahrenheit, and the last time I went there, I hit the mythical -40. So,
Steve, were you at 100 Acre the year that Reki was done in shorts, and then we woke up the next morning and there was snow and ice on the ground, and then they ended up canceling day 2? Were you there that year?
Yeah. Canceling day 2. I remember canceling the last loop of day 2.
Yeah, the last loop. Yeah, at the end of the day. Yeah. So I have never, and Missouri is great for that. Missouri, if the weather's one way, you can plan on it being something different in about 12 hours. And
sounds like Pennsylvania.
Oh yeah, we had thunder, snow, we had sleet, we had rain, we had just huge amounts of snow. And I can remember pushing the rally car, trying to get it out of a snowbank, and it just became, it was crazy. One year we got behind a Saab, a 2-stroke Saab, when it snowed at 100 Acre. It was one of the early years. And I had to get out and push them up the hill and then push my car up the hill. So I've got some experience in that.
Nice.
But yeah, I haven't done Pierce Neige and I haven't done Snowdrift yet because, and those co-driver shoes, they are not, I don't know about you, Steve, but mine don't keep my feet very warm.
No, definitely not. I rely on the leather boots rule for the winter events.
That's a good idea.
Because it says, racing shoes or leather. So leather boots for winter rallies.
I will have to invest.
but that 100 Acre, I was with Troy Miller in his Fiesta for that event. And the first loop on day 2, we got 2 flats on one stage, and it was the first stage of the loop, and we only had one spare. So we did the rest of the loop. We did the rest of the loop swapping flats on that corner just so we could make it through and get back to service.
I love that. I love the ingenuity. So when I raced Show Me, we had the pin out of the gear shift fall out, and we had to tie it together with paracord to
Nice.
finish the stage, the transit, and then the next stage, and then transit to service. I think that rally teaches you more than anything about how to, like, how much can we put through this tire that's flat? How much can we
Mm-hmm.
push this? Can Gatorade go in a radiator? It can, by the way, for a
Yes.
limited amount of time.
So does
Um,
beer.
oh, good to know. So yeah, I think that to me has been a blast, is just figuring out. I've gotten so many jobs because they've asked me how I handle stress. What do you mean? Like stress? You posted a
What's
motor
that? I'm a
2 miles an
rally
hour? Like,
co-driver.
I don't know yeah, I don't know what that is. Um, yeah, so I think that's great, and I love hearing stories when people overcome like that. I do remember the 2 flats. I did not know that's how y'all made it through, but
Yep.
I do remember the 2 flats. That's
It
incredible.
it just barely worked because we were on the transit back to service, and the entire tread came off and just like passed us and went off into the woods. So that was just sidewalls on the wheel.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh man.
Yep. Yeah. Oh,
Oh wow.
man.
Yeah, that is crazy. So I love, this is one of my favorite things, right? So we've talked about all kinds of different things. There's been so many different topics to talk about, and I know we could spend hours upon hours. And my wife knows this very well. My friends know this very well. I'm a talker. I can talk forever and ever and ever, but I also love just hearing all of these different stories and things like that. And I'm going to really enjoy sharing this episode with everybody. It's been an absolute blast. But I am going to have to kind of bring us to one final question before we wrap up. And that would be, and we kind of talked about it in the beginning with the fact that, Kubota is one of the big sponsors this year, and how we've seen, the increase in publicity around rally and things like that. What are your guys' opinions and thoughts on how we can increase rally's exposure, gain sponsorships for events, and maybe even additional driver sponsors, such as what I intend to hopefully do with Drop a Gear someday?
I think if I knew the answer to that, I'd be working for ARA.
Same here.
Yeah. One of the things I've used in the past, and it was really great, and I will own that I have not used it lately like I should have. There's an app called Hook It, and we actually went through Hook It and connected with Lucas Oil. And when I was running the Ford Focus, the little white and red Ford Focus, they shipped us a pallet. We had to go and talk to them, and we had to go beyond just using the app, but that got us connected. And then I worked with a couple of other groups, Rhino Power and some different groups, to get some things that helped with cost. That's a start. As a new driver, if I'm trying to find a way, that's where I would start. And from there, it's really about getting in the community. I was at a local pizza joint the other day, and they offer softball not scholarships, sponsorships. And unfortunately, I was really pressed for time, but I plan on going back to say, have you ever thought about a rally car? Because if they're already sponsoring and if they already have a budget, why wouldn't that be something they would consider? And it would be completely unique. And the crazy thing about the area I live in is there are a ton of teams up here that would benefit from that, whether they're sponsoring a car or a stage or an award. So it really is about getting out in the community, talking about it, taking the cars places. When I had the car that I owned, we drove it all the time, all the time. And it was great. I worked at Walmart corporate at the time, and we drove it to Walmart corporate to work, which was really funny when you get out of the rally car in a business suit and heels. And they're like, wait, what? Did you just crawl over a roll cage in that? Yes, yes, I did. And I'm going to get back in at the end of the day. But it really gives that exposure. So letting people see it, connecting with local businesses are huge. And people who want to do what you're doing and getting them involved, it really opens up different doors. But it is a lot of work, and one of us, all of us need to get started on that.
Very good points. Yeah, I asked that question, to Billy Petro last year, and right up that same thing. Get out there, start talking to people, do this, do that, right? But his big thing, and I kind of like it, was he had this idea of the whole follow follow and follow thing, which, in the social media industry tends to be this weird faux pas, I guess you could call it, whatever, right? Like, oh, if you follow me, I'll follow you, and stuff like that. And I like that idea, but I also like it, like, if you're going to do that, engage with them, right? You have to engage, right? That's how the whole idea behind it works. And that's why, like, right now for me, like this year, I was really hoping to be hitting more stage rallies this year or getting my car a little bit closer. Had some snafus and some other things come up. So, hey, gonna have to put that on the back burner. And, one of the biggest things this year that I did with Drop a Gear is that I'm taking on actually sponsoring a organization. So if you guys haven't noticed, we've sponsored American Veteran Racing Organization that's going to help partner to help veterans get into the motorsport side of things. We're working with Mike Carr, who's, got his ARA rally car, which actually we're gearing up for Southern Ohio. So that'll be a lot of fun. So should be fun for that event. We've got a couple other events that we're doing. I can't remember them all off the top of my head, but yeah, so that's one of the things there. I'm also trying to find ways to get more sponsorships for not only them, but also trying to see what we can do for Drop a Gear to help further Drop a Gear's, goals and missions within the motorsports as well. So I like the idea of just, hey, getting out there, getting to the businesses and talking to them, which is something that I myself, being the only one that does have pretty much everything within this, it can be a challenge sometimes. So, but yeah. So what are your thoughts, Steve, on just anything else you'd like to add to that, or?
She covered it as she always does. She's around the money, and it's exposure, it's visibility. I think other things are making it as accessible and friendly as possible to new potential competitors who are interested in getting into it. Showing a clear path and advice on how to make it to the stages. And I think also something that I'd like to see is better networking on connecting people who want to get involved as co-drivers or crew, and like pairing them with teams who need co-drivers or crew. And I think like
I
helping
like
with
that.
accessibility, helping get people to the events and involved in the events will help spread the enthusiasm and help things grow.
Oh, absolutely. No, I really like that about the idea of connecting, to drivers with co-drivers and so on and so forth within the sport, because that it really just kind of plays into everything else we've been talking about tonight. So definitely really like that. All right. Well, guys, I want to thank you first of all for coming onto the podcast tonight. Makisa, this has been a absolute pleasure to be able to sit down and chat with you about your experience as a co-driver, doing some of the stuff in all the stuff with rally, being everything from, being an organizer and, all of those different things, to just, the level of your involvement in the community is amazing. And I think that's awesome. Steve touched on it earlier, the fact that there's more women in motorsports and in rally is also awesome. I fully support it. I think there's no better place than whatever sport, if there's a place, and if women want to be there, great. I absolutely support it. So I'm glad that you've been involved in for as long as you have as well, because that just shows that this isn't a new thing to the motorsport. So again, thank you for coming onto the podcast. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. Steve, it's been awesome talking to you as well, hearing your different insights as well from the co-driver's perspective, your background with also, touching from the driver's seat here and there, but how much you bring to it with the from the co-driver side. I really like the fact that you also came from the other discipline here, where you had some of the desert racing and stuff like that. I think that brings in a very nice mix into everything as well. I think a lot of that is just, I should say, it's really nice when you have drivers and co-drivers that come from different motorsports, because you can see the different aspects and things like that. And you can kind of, intertwine those things. And your insight and, the information that you brought tonight was also very enlightening. It helps me grow as an up and coming driver. Again, same thing for you, Makisa. Everything that you guys brought to the podcast tonight has been amazing. I hope that there are other drivers or co-drivers out there who are looking to get into the sport that stumble upon this podcast or have been listening, because there was a very large amount of knowledge in here. And I actually look forward to bringing more drivers and co-drivers onto the podcast to talk about their insights and some of the other things as well. So, but it's been an amazing time. This has been the officially longest podcast that we've done. So congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I am not excited to bring this to a close, but it has been an awesome time here. And I thank everyone for tuning in, taking a listen to the Gearbusters podcast. So with that, we will send it home, but thank you for tuning in. And again, thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Makisa, for joining us on the podcast. And that's going to wrap it up for another episode of the Gearbusters podcast.